The Federal Reserve Part 1.
So we don't actually print the money here at the Federal Reserve. That's a common misconception.
Then who does?
The Bureau of Engraving and Printing is actually responsible for carrying out the printing function for bills.
So this isn't where money's born, but it's where money comes to die, right?
We do shred money, actually. I believe we shred to the tune of $10 million a day.
When paper bills become too old and worn out to survive in the rough and tumble world of high finance, this is where they're taken out of circulation.
Makes great confetti.
Okay, other than shredding money, what does the Federal Reserve do?
The role of the Federal Reserve as our country's central bank is to control the amount of money in circulation in the economy. We do this in order to ensure some stability in prices and hopefully employment as well.
In addition to that, the Federal Reserve will also perform research on the economy and produce reports that influence a lot of the decision makers throughout the country.
Fed's role as a lender of last resort. Lender of last resort is when the Fed is responsible for keeping the banks from making investments that are way too risky. The Fed uses loans to keep the bank's reserves up when financial times are horrible.
We saw this in play during the 2007-2009 financial crisis.
The Federal Reserve is the sole leader of all monetary policy in the United States, and it has a few tools that affect the aggregate demand of our economy. The Fed was originally established to prevent the supplies of money from drying up like they had in the years before 1914 by being the lender of last resort.
The Federal Reserve is still a lender of last resort to banks, which we saw in play during the 2007-2009 financial crisis, when they lent out insane amounts of money to companies like AIG and all the other ones, I can't remember.
Example, the Federal Reserve helped JP Morgan Chase purchase Bear Stearns at a bargain basement price, which put the Federal Reserve money at risk.
Now for the discount rate. The Federal Reserve uses a tool known as the discount rate to influence the amount of money that banks borrow while altering the rate of interest on said loans. The discount rate is the rate that a bank is charged so that they can borrow short-term funds directly from a Federal Reserve bank. Sometimes these funds are arranged before a bank closes for the night, and thus the loans are completed overnight by a computer to keep the bank's reserves up. Those overnight loans can be for a very short amount of time because the bank knows they'll be getting their money shortly, either the next morning or perhaps the next week. Each bank has a certain regional Federal Reserve bank that they have to borrow from. There are 12 total district banks all throughout the United States, each one having specific states part of it. The rate is changed to best solve the current financial needs of the month, but when it changes the discount rate, the Fed cannot know how banks will react. And the picture you see is just the 12 Federal Reserve discount district banks all throughout the U.S.
The federal funds rate is the interest rates that banks pay and receive when they borrow reserves from one another. The purpose of the federal funds rate is so they won't have to deal with the Fed or pay the discount rate, since the federal funds rate is lower than the discount rate.
A little known fact about the federal funds rate is that it actually has an indirect effect on the mortgage rates. That was prevalent during the financial crisis of 2007-2009 when the housing market crashed. Another example is, it's actually easier to deal with someone of the same level as you than it is to deal with the federal government. The discount window. During the discount window, the Federal Reserve banks offer three programs to depository institutions: primary credit, secondary credit, and seasonal credit. Each comes along with its own interest rate. All discount window loans are fully secured, by the Federal Reserve. Each type of loan comes with its own rules and regulations. The discount window continued. The discount rates from the Federal Reserve discount site are in the picture below. From 2010, the discount rates have stayed the same on primary and secondary credit. It's been at 0.75 for the primary and 1.25% for the secondary credit rate. For 3 years, it's been the same ever since the financial crisis ended. And as you can see in the picture, the interest rates on the discount windows are actually pretty low compared to how they used to be, 6.25% in 2005.
Primary credit loans are extended for a very short term, usually overnight, to depository institutions in sound financial conditions at a rate above the Federal Open Market Committee target rate for federal funds. Primary credit may be used for any purpose, including financing the sale of federal funds. Reserve banks ordinarily do not require depository institutions to provide reasons for requesting very short-term primary credit, but should a pattern of borrowing arise, it will indicate the institution is not generally sound.
Now for secondary credit. Secondary credit is only available to depository institutions which are not eligible for the primary credit to meet with the backup liquidity needs. Very short term, and usually overnight at a rate that is above the primary credit rate. And the secondary credit loans cannot be used to purchase or fund an expansion of the borrower's assets. And the higher level of Reserve Bank administration and oversight than the primary credit program. In other words, more people oversee those loans than the primaries.
Seasonal credit is designed to assist small depository institutions in managing significant seasonal swings in their loans and deposits. Eligible institutions are usually located in agricultural or tourist areas. An institution that anticipates a possible need for seasonal credit is encouraged to contact its reserve bank to ascertain its eligibility and make arrangements in advance.
And that is actually the end of our presentation. As you can see here, we used sources from the Federal Laws website, which has every single federal law that you could possibly need for the Federal Reserve. We used a few other sites that aren't as reputable,